Honda! Ha! Today we're going to be doing a CV axle on a Honda. This is a 97 Civic DX. It's manual transmission. And I'd just like to say that most Hondas are very similar. This one does not have ABS or anti-lock brakes. But other than that, most of it's going to be the same whether it's a Civic or Accord throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. First thing you want to do is you want to support your vehicle. You can do it, you can see they've got a little square here that you can jack the car up by and take a jack stand and put it under something that's substantial, some heavy chunk of metal that's bigger than two fingers put together as a general rule. So pull off the lug nuts. Shoo! 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 My sound effects aren't working. I need better sound effects. Set your lug nuts aside and take your wheel off. If it won't come off real good, turn around backwards. Kick it like a mule. Go like this. Bam, bam, bam. It'll come off. And grab it like that so it doesn't get onto your splash plate. If you bend this plate right here, it'll rub against the rotor and make all kinds of horrible noise. The next thing you want to do is you want to take off your spindle nut. It's 32 millimeter on most of them. Pull that off. Set it aside. Next thing you want to do is you want to address your brake lines and your ABS lines. In this case, because there is no ABS, we only have a brake line to contend with. There's a 12 millimeter bolt on the back side. We'll pull that off and set it aside. And the next thing that we'll do is we'll go ahead and pause the video because our parts are here. Moving right along, we pull the 12 millimeter bolt out of there. It's an M8 by 1.25, but the head on it's 12. So you get that unsecured. And by the way, how do you know if your CV axle's bad? Let's cover that for just a minute. You can see this one's blown open. When they blow open, they not only lose their lubrication as the grease gets flung out of there, but also a bunch of water and dust and dirt gets in there, and it causes it to deteriorate the quality of the joint. It creates a rattle, a little bit of a groan. Eventually it will become so bad that a joint will come undone and your car won't go. If you lose one of your CV axles, you lose drive from both sides because it'll only send power to the one side because you have a differential in there. That's why they call it a transaxle instead of a transmission, because it's the axle and differential assembly built in with the transmission gearbox. So anyway, when this one goes bad, say you're turning to the left, all the way to the car goes onto that right axle as you turn, and it'll go ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. And so same thing if you back up and you're turned to one way, wherever the weight of the car goes. For example, if say our left CV axle goes bad, when we turn right, the car will lean this way and it'll go ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk on. When we turn right, the left axle will give symptom. When we turn left, the right axle will give symptom. It's just wherever the weight goes. So anyway, because that wheel will have the most traction and it will be traveling the fastest and the furthest distance. So anyway, I won't go into a whole lot more of that. Probably boring people. Anyway, so we got the nut off, we got the bolt off. We're going to pull our cotter pin out. If you have ABS, it'll be down the other side, and you can just remove the ABS and just give it some slack. You don't have to pull it out of here or there, unplug it or nothing. You just go ahead and undo them. The next thing you want to do is you have a wishbone back here, and you want to undo that. It's a 14 millimeter bolt. Bzeek! Pull that out of there. And then down here it's a 17 millimeter, and there'll be a nut on the other side, and they're actually a little bit trickier to get out. Once you pull the nut off of this side, you gotta tap it a little bit. Work on your stabbing skills. Just punch that out. Need some of that horror movie kind of soundtrack for that. My videos would be a lot more fun if I had some editing skill, but I don't. So bear with me. Next thing is this little guy. You can undo it from the bottom or you can undo it from the top. It doesn't matter. I like to undo it from the top just because these are easier to deal with. This is a 17 millimeter. You loosen this first, get it nice and loose and down a little ways. Then you hit the side with a hammer. Most of the times they'll pop undone as the spring actuates in the up direction. But if it doesn't, unscrew it down just a little bit and just give it a little tap with your hammer. I'm not talking a love tap, that's not appropriate here. Just a little tap, tap, tap-a-rooski and they'll come out. You don't want to deform any part of the nut, you'll be reusing that later. So you unscrew that, lose it in there someplace. Ah, found it. I'm real particular about laying everything out, you know, what I refer to as nice and even, so it doesn't get kicked away. I used to have a cat that would come around. The cat would come and just knock things everywhere, so I always like to put it in a magnetic dish or on the jack slide or something. So anyway, so we've got this out of there. The brake hose is not under a great deal of stress. It's okay. The next thing that you'll want to do is you want to take a hammer and just tap on your axle a little bit. Give it a little wiggle shake. And once you do that, you'll be able to turn the axle and point it down and forward or back or whatever you want as far as getting it out of there. If you turn the wheel, in this case turn the wheel to the left so this extends, that'll give you more slack and you won't have to take your tie rod out. Take your little wishbone, you shove it down off of the strut and then off like that. It's hard to look at what you're doing and film at the same time, but hopefully you guys got that okay. The bulge goes to the front when you pull it back on, just so you know. I'll lay that out nice and neatly. Now my axle's just hanging there. I've got it out, you know, pretty much. The next thing I'll do is I'll take a pry bar like this. You can use one like this. It's about as long as the bottom portion of your leg if you're 6 foot. Or a little bit longer one. You go underneath of here, and the way that these are held in is they're held in by a little C-clip, and that C-clip holds it in, you know, with some spring pressure. And I've found that they like a little bit of impact shock. So you want to support your axle, get it so that it's kind of pretty straight, you know, out of the transmission, and that way you don't get additional angular force on that C-clip. So then you just put your pry bar in there, the blade of it. Let's see, can we see that? And just kind of whack it, just kind of bang, 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 like that. A good hard shock to it is better than, you know, several pounds of force. And then see how that's kind of springy? You can use that to pull it out. When I go to put it in, see there's that little C-clip right there. When I go to put it in, I'll put a bunch of grease, like axle grease, on the C-clip to center it, hold it in. You'll twist it when you put it in, and then when you drive it in, you don't hit it with a hammer. You just kind of, it's like the whole axle is a slide hammer. You know, like you can slide it in and out and just kind of jostle it and it'll click in. Just like I jostled to get it out, you jostle it back in. That's how you remove your CV axle. Installation's basically the same. You just want to remember when you go to put your wheel back on that you want to tighten it in opposites. For example, if I did this one first on the lug nuts, the next one I'd tighten down is this one, and that makes your wheel sit nice and flat on there. If you tighten it at an angle and it binds, then your wheel's not going to be all the way tight on this side. It'll be sticking out. It'll be super tight here, you know, because if you go bam, bam, you know, it'll tighten it lopsided. So make sure to go opposites when you tighten your wheel back on. I hope you enjoyed my video. I had fun making it. And subscribe if you want to see more. It's a gray subscribe button above. Be sure to click like if you like it. Click don't like if you don't like it. Give me some feedback and let me know what you want to see. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little commentary at the end. This is like a PS or postscript at the end of a letter. You see this little clip, how it's sticking out right there? Now that is not going to go in. That'll just fight and fight and fight and won't go in. You can see it kind of flops around there. And it's got an opening right here that you can see. So what I do is I take some grease and I grease that up. I get it all over my fingers and I go like this a bunch of times. Turn it, go like this, turn it, go like this. That causes this to float right in the middle because the grease is supporting it. It's holding it in place. It's working like, you know, duct tape or something, if you will, holding it in place just temporarily until it clicks in. Also, while I'm doing that, I take a little bit of grease and I'll put it on this portion of the axle you see here. This is where the seal rides on it. If this is too dry, it'll burn up the seal and cause a leak. So put grease here, put grease here. Some people, this is the spline side, some people like to grease this portion here so that they come out easily. There's nothing wrong with that either. You don't want to grease the threads on the nut. The nut, when you put the nut on also, it comes with a new one that has a little bit of a ring. You can see that it's got threads and it's got a ring here. When you tighten this one on, you tighten it down, and then wherever this notch is, take a small chisel and a hammer and you ding this so that it's dinged into this notch. That's a safety precaution to cause this knot to come off. This assembly here holds your wheel bearing together. If this comes off, your wheel bearing comes apart, and if that happens, your whole tire and wheel can fall off. So remember to ding the nut. Cheers!